Good evening and welcome to Sporlitiks, where sports and politics mix and mingle. I'm Stacey Johnson. Joining me tonight is Aguna, the Nigerian moderate Republican, Keith, the constitutional conservative, Stephen, the independent thinker, and my cousin Todd. We have a full pre-Thanksgiving Day show for you. At least 5 are killed in a shooting at an LGBTQ club in Colorado. Qatar makes World Cup debut in a controversial tournament of first. If you want something to drink that is an adult alcoholic beverage, let's see if you can get it. How monoclonal antibodies lost the fight with new COVID variants. NFL Week 11 odds, and Aguna will talk about our Eagles. Kyrie Irving opens up a new apology about anti-Semitic post. 3 House Republicans say they won't support McCarthy for Speaker, as Rep. Matt Gaetz says conservatives have enough votes to upset Kevin McCarthy's plan to be House Speaker. College football playoffs are ready to go. We'll talk about the teams that will be playing. Representative Hakeem Jeffries announces a bid to replace Nancy Pelosi as Democratic leader. Donald Trump reacts after Elon Musk reinstates his Twitter account, ending his lifetime ban. And the Supreme Court clears the way for the House of Representatives to receive former President Trump's income taxes. Will this affect his presidential announcement? Global Climate Conference closes with climate damage compensation deal. President Biden extends the student loan repayment freeze as forgiveness program is tied up in courts. And finally, Senator Lindsey Graham, he finally testified before a Georgia grand jury investigating the 2020 election aftermath. That and more, if we can fit it in. First up, Aguna, let's talk about, these latecomers, Johnny come latelys, I don't even know if we even need to let them in. Let's talk about FIFA and Qatar and what's happening over the World Cup.
Yeah, so I mean, we have the opening. So first thing, it's a World Cup first, right? So we usually don't have it in the fall like we're having it now. It's usually over the summer. And of course, because it's in the fall, because of the heat in Qatar, there's they pushed it. But this is going to be the last World Cup to have like 32 teams. Are going to expand the field going forward. But it's been a very interesting opening World Cup. I hadn't been as enthusiastic about it because Nigeria isn't in the World Cup, but there's Ghana's in it, Senegal's in it, so there are some other African, West African countries, in fact, representing here. But yeah, I mean, Qatar opened it up against Ecuador. Ecuador, of course, being one of the South American soccer powerhouses, did handily handle Qatar. But surprisingly enough, there's been some interesting upsets and some interesting matches so far in the first couple days. Saudi Arabia beat Argentina, and that was just that's probably one of the biggest upsets in World Cup history right there. I mean, in fact, Messi doesn't lose too often, especially in the group stage. So for that to happen and for Saudi Arabia to win, in fact, they scored like 2 goals in 5 minutes in the second opening of the second half. That just shocked the world. So it'll be interesting. I still think Argentina can make it out of that group. The U.S. also tied Wales, which I thought the U.S. had it in the bag a little bit, but then Wales had the equalizer. That particular group stage, the group that the U.S. is in, there's going to be an interesting match coming up against Iran. Ironically enough, the U.S. will be playing Iran in the next match, but then you also play England. So we definitely need at least one win to get out the group stage. So the fact that we had a tie to Wales.
And when you say get out the group stage, what do you mean by get out? And you see here, Saudi Arabia versus Argentina, and who won again?
Saudi Arabia won 2-1. Yeah, it was a huge upset.
Yeah,
Huge
right.
upset. So I still think Argentina. So that particular group, you got Mexico and Poland in that group, right? So Mexico, Argentina is going to be a really good matchup. Poland, they've come on a little bit better in the last several World Cups, but you think that Argentina will still be okay, but that loss was huge. I mean, they usually do not lose.
So
stage.
So I mean, does that set the stage kind of for the Arab world in terms of them winning? I mean, does that mean they'll?
So I don't think they're going to win. I mean, they're Saudi Arabia, ironically enough, has gone out and hired a lot of mercenaries to come in and be on their squad. So they've been doing that for years. You have a lot of,
and they won
money,
and they won, right?
They
beat Argentina. They beat Argentina.
A lot of money invested
in
paying in those players. So yeah, they probably definitely got their money's worth with that victory. But again, I don't see any quote unquote Arab teams, getting, making a run at the actual cup. I mean, you may see some get out the group stage. You got Tunisia. It's always been a good team. Qatar, I don't think they're going to get out the group stage, especially that group that they're in. It's not, I don't think Ecuador is probably one of the easier games or the easier matchups for that particular stage. So I don't think that, we're going to see them past that, even though they're the host country, because they also have the Netherlands in there. Qatar, Senegal may be an interesting game there, but the good thing about the World Cup is you have a lot of dynamics with these countries that are playing each other on the world stage. Former, colonies and things like that going up against countries that used to be there, used to be there. So it's interesting. Same thing with the U.S. and England.
That sounds kind of boring, to be honest. It sounds kind of boring.
I mean, it's the most popular sport in the world. Of course, it's boring to you. So here's the thing: it's coming to the U.S. and it's going to be in quite a few stadiums around the country. So, I mean, it's not boring. The whole world is tuning in on this stuff. It's
so let's talk about
these nations to do.
Okay, let's talk about Qatar and drinking alcohol. So, in places like I have friends that have spent years in Saudi Arabia working, and there's no alcohol. I've gone to the Saudi Arabian embassy in Washington, D.C. for an event where they served food and drink, and I was happy because there's a lot of fruit juices, but there's no alcohol. In those parts, in that part of the world, the Arab countries, they don't drink alcohol. That was a big problem for fans that were traveling from outside of the Arab nations. What happened?
No, so this is the result of the selection committee and the money that Qatar gave them, because there was a big bribe scandal going on, prior to Qatar being selected. And this is one of the concerns. I know a lot of times with these host countries, they try to accommodate other cultures, but at the same time, it's their country, right? So it's like, where do you find the balance of, being accommodating, because you are going to have people from all over the world coming to your country. At the same time, their culture is what it is. They have laws.
So what happened with the? Can I get a cocktail or not? That's all I want to know.
They have designated drinking areas. They do have it's funny because Budweiser is a host of the World Cup, right? So they have these designated drinking zones where they serve alcohol-free Budweiser, if there is such a thing, and then they have other areas where you can buy, but they're away from the stadium and they won't allow it in the stadiums alcohol at all. So, and then it seemed like this was like a last-minute thing because they never talked about this leading up to the World Cup. And they made this decision like 2 or 3 days right before, and then the FIFA the head came out there and tried to make it seem like, this is not a big deal. But yeah, I mean, this is why. I mean, when they announced that Qatar was the host country, I was like, okay, that's one World Cup I will not go to. I was actually like Russia was like, but when it was in Qatar, whew,
So
I'll
Aguna,
pass.
you would go to Russia, Aguna?
I would go to Russia before Qatar.
Oh no, I wouldn't go to either one of them.
Yeah, I mean, again, it'd be an in and out type thing.
That
You know, your
player.
hotel rooms would be bugged
Look
and
what
all this
happened
other
to that
stuff.
one basketball player.
Well, I wouldn't have to worry about. I'm not taking any weed or anything in there. I'm not doing any of that stuff.
Just like
another
she
country.
was. She was railroaded.
Why is it that everybody's
but that's different.
Why is it that everybody's culture has to be respected but ours in America? Why is
So what do you mean by that?
Why don't you wait till later in the show to be a victim, Keith? You don't have to be a victim from the beginning of the show to the end. It's like everybody, woe is me, America.
Don't you understand that Budweiser had a deal? Budweiser had a deal, and after it started, they lost their deal. And now they're going to give away all that beer that they were going to sell to the country that wins because they're trying to avoid the taxes on this beer. So whoever wins.
Oh, no. Well, so I think. But I do think
that's why a Muslim country won't win.
There's some.
So
yeah,
you're saying
I think
it's already
Budweiser
set
came
up.
out and didn't say anything.
Like Germany or France or somebody will win, and then they'll get all the
you're
Budweiser
saying it's
beer
already
that
set
nobody
up.
wants. France and Germany does not want Budweiser beer.
Okay, all right. You're saying it's set up.
Budweiser in Germany is like Heineken, right? So it's like Heineken over here. It's like it's almost like it's a specialty beer over there. Where over here it's like, it's a Budweiser.
Oh no, they really don't want it. Germany makes some of the best beer in the world. They don't want Budweiser.
Budweiser is pretty expensive over there because it's.
Let me move on because this is like getting boring.
It's expensive because nobody buys it.
Come on.
Who are the teams? Who are the teams that are going to possibly win Aguna for World Cup?
Well, of course, you got to look at the powerhouses, right? You got to look at Germany. You got to look at France. You also got to look at the Netherlands, Portugal. I mean, maybe. But then, of course, you got Brazil, Argentina. So they're going to be the usual suspects will be definitely pushing through to the group state, to the elimination rounds. But it may be interesting to see some of the upsets.
The World
Cup. I had Germany.
I
had
Germany, France, maybe Germany. Belgium, Netherlands.
Okay.
And then in South America is going to be, Argentina, Brazil. So those would probably be some of the bigger marquee names. Now, how the U.S. does, we'll see. I mean, they got to get out the group stage, though. That will be a win for U.S. soccer. We can at least get
Stacey, can I throw this in? The soccer players for Iran did not sing the Iran national anthem and out of protest of what Iran is doing to their people. The oppression that they're doing to their people and killing their people and jailing their people. And these soccer players, we need to pray for them because they're going to be in a lot of trouble. They're going to be in super trouble because when you have an authoritarian government like that are totalitarian, that do not care about human rights, they will tear you to pieces. And I feel bad for these guys, but I'm glad that they stood up. They didn't take a knee for a country that wasn't horrible. They stood up against a country that was horrible.
Again, if you're going to use freedom of speech, it's across the board. Not saying the country's horrible, but it's not perfect.
Iran doesn't have any freedom of speech. Iran doesn't have freedom of speech.
But we do. So if we take a knee here, it's okay. If we take a knee here,
it's okay because we have freedom of speech. They don't have it in Iran. Those people that stood up.
That's not what you alluded to. You said take a knee in a country that's not as bad.
The people that took a knee in this country are not as bad as the ones who didn't.
We spent 14 minutes.
Then there's no difference between here and Iran if you're going to talk about taking a knee when it's appropriate. I mean,
we've spent 14 minutes on this. We're going to have to move on.
It is what it is.
It is what it is.
Yes. Hurry up, Keith. Keith, you are the person who says we spend too much time on sports, and then you tell me to stop.
Well, I just want to ask you.
We haven't even started with sports yet. We haven't even talked about sports.
Yeah, we have. We were talking about World Cup soccer. I
just wanted to ask a question.
That's not the NFL.
You want to talk about curling?
It doesn't matter to all of us on the show as much as NFL.
My question was, why is the World Cup being held in America? Why are they?
They go around. It's different.
Mexico versus the other one, whatever that one. Why are they holding it out here?
The world. It goes around the world, Keith. That's why.
Yeah, man. That's why it's called the World Cup.
It's a World Cup.
In the U.S. before, back in '96 when it was, And
okay.
Or was it 94? 94 or 96 it was in the world.
I know it was
the Olympics they
you
had.
See that, Stephen? You still want to marry him?
I just never get married again. Unlike you, cousin Todd, I've been married twice. I'm not going to do that again. I'm not getting married again.
And I like the institution of marriage, but I don't want to be institutionalized anymore. A globalist. Keith is
He
doesn't want to integrate with the world. He just wants for some reason that makes sense to him, even though we have a global economy. It's America first, right?
Well, it's America first, but we still have a global economy.
Do you say
let's think about us first while we have a global economy?
Do you say that?
Well, you got to consider the world if we're going to continue to be the shining beacon on the hill. And
that's exactly right. But let's put ourselves first.
Stephen, let's go on to college football playoff ranking predictions, top 25 projections for week 13. This is according to NCAA.com, written by Stan Becton, November 22nd, which is today. So they're predicting Georgia number 1, Ohio State, Michigan, TCU, Southern California, LSU, Alabama 7, I can't believe it, Clemson 8, 9 Oregon, and 10 Tennessee. Top 10. Do you agree with that, Stephen?
Oh yeah, I don't have anything against that, and it's nice to see Alabama knocked back a little bit, but they'll be right back in the next year, the year after. They'll be fine. It was just a kind of a bad year for them, but there's a lot of teams that you usually would see in the top 10, top 20. They're not there this year. So it's getting a little bit like the NFL in college football, where you have more parity, and that makes everything more interesting. And you don't just have Alabama in the top every year. It makes it a little bit more fun. It's just like when New England was winning every Super Bowl for the last 20 years, basically. It's kind of the same thing. It's nice to have different teams in here and different things shaking up. I like it. It's good right now. And I like Georgia at number 1. They belong there.
Okay, Aguna. We can't hear you, Aguna.
I'm sorry, I'm on mute. The only asterisk I would say is that TCU. I mean, I just, you could take the worst SEC team and they could beat TCU on any given Saturday, in my opinion. So it's just, you see the undefeated, they got the goose egg next to it, so they get by default in the top 4. But I mean, you look at USC there, you look at some of the other 1-loss teams. Clemson has 1 loss there. But even some of those 2-loss teams with Alabama, Tennessee just lost to South Carolina, which, was one of the biggest upsets in college sports over the weekend. I mean, those are things that, you like to see this expansion to 6 teams just to see how those things shake out. I mean, unfortunately, this year we've had a lot of 2-loss teams. Previously, it's always been like those 1-loss teams that we've always had the debate about. But I don't know, TCU over Tennessee or over Alabama. Even if Alabama has 2 losses, it's kind of like, what is TCU really going to do once you get to the playoffs? But I do agree with Georgia. Georgia should be there. Ohio State, and then of course Michigan. I think Michigan plays Ohio State coming up, right? So that's going to be like a early playoff win, because I think whoever loses that game is going to be knocked out of the playoff picture, if I'm not mistaken. But
it says Michigan will battle Ohio State for a Big Ten championship berth.
Right.
And bragging rights. Yes.
Yeah. So it's going to be, that may leave the door open for like a USC to get in there, or so it's going to be interesting. That's going to be interesting, and maybe Clemson getting back in the mix. But Clemson only has 1 loss, but it's like who they lost to. It's like a big deal. And again, college is cool because the playoffs are like year long, right? The whole season is basically a playoff game. But yeah, we'll see. But TCU, I don't know about that one.
Okay. Thank you, cousin Todd.
Oh, here we go.
Oh yeah. Predictions. I predict.
What in the time? What in
Philly-
the hell? Are you cold?
Can you get out of my closet?
What in the world
Oh,
is going on? Man,
I
did you
and
think
just-
there's room in that closet.
you're like a cousin Todd elf on a shelf.
Okay. I predict that the Phillies will take it all the way to the Stanley Cup.
Yeah, go back and help Santa wrap those gifts.
No producer.
Yeah.
And you said
you,
Stanley
Todd.
Cup.
Jesus
Look, I'm
Christ,
representing the losing Flyers, and the Flyers are gonna turn it around. The Flyers are gonna turn it around. I'm representing.
I
the
wouldn't
losing
hold your breath.
Flyers.
I would not.
Well, we have a lot of injuries right now, and
Including pride.
it's hard to get past the injuries. You know,
No,
that's a rough thing.
no drilling, no fracking, no energy production.
Steven,
have-
how are your Caps doing?
Is this just your propaganda? Do you have a shot of propaganda before you got on the show, Keith?
Yep.
Okay.
No,
Yeah. Well, yeah. Make sure you get
Steven?
back to your rally.
Steven, Steven,
I don't think Steven
He's
can hear.
Googling it.
Oh, Stacy.
I said,
Stacy.
how are yes? How are your Caps
Oh.
doing?
He's gonna keep
Is
calling
it
your
even?
name
Is it even
as if
hockey
you did
season?
something.
They're playing now. They're
Oh,
playing now.
he
yes.
doesn't know
Is it
anything about
even
sports, so let's move
any-
on.
Jesus. Okay.
All right, we're going to move on.
I hope that the Capitals win the Super Bowl and they go to Disney World.
Man, dude. Hey.
He steals
Must be some
the
real
stuff right
good
out
herb
of your mouth.
down in that
God.
He's
basement.
such a thief. This boy will take the drawers right off of you. Ah,
You wish. You wish, Todd.
Y'all making Keith jealous over here.
Todd just revealed. Todd, that was a reveal. I don't know if you can have a boy or a girl, but you just revealed tonight. Take the drawers right off of you.
All right, guys. You're having too much fun. All right.
yeah.
Okay, Stephen, go ahead. You continue with your sorry Commanders.
Sorry, you mean the winners, the ones that are going to take over, the ones that have a quarterback that the whole team loves now, Heineke. You know, every game, every time they win a game, they drink a case of Heineke apiece. Every player, they love Heineke. They fight and battle. The defense is better. We're getting young back. We're getting our best player back after over a year. We're going to be jamming. We're 6-5. We have a win record. Nobody here, nobody over there, nobody anywhere would have said we'd be 6-5 right now. And with Heineke at the helm, Wentz carries a great clipboard, and he kind of helps out Wentz by tying his shoes for him. But that's all we need him for. We have a great quarterback that does enough to get the team pumped up to play hard around him. They're the offensive line, defensive line, everybody's playing great. The New York Midgets have no competition for I'll say the Washington team, because I don't want to hurt anybody's feelings, and I don't want.
Well, you
Cousin
just
Todd to
did
go
when
to
you
a
said
6.
midget.
The New York
I just
Midgets
can't get over. I just can't get over
aren't
it.
worth a
He was letting
damn.
Todd have
We're
it.
going to beat the New York
Oh, my
Midgets. We're going to
goodness.
compete with Cowboys, but boys were pretty
He stole
impressive.
everything right
And we're
from
going to
under
compete
you,
with the
Todd.
Eagles as well. There's a
Right.
lot more football to be played. Don't be surprised if the Washington team doesn't come out and make the playoffs, and maybe even win a playoff game this year.
And you cannot use that word midget. So stop using that
You know what it
word.
reminds me of? When the
Them
Eagles
words.
won the Super Bowl and everybody was wearing a dog mask. You remember when they were the underdogs? This year we're the underdogs. Watch out
Okay,
for the.
Bruno.
Okay, all right, calm
Okay,
down.
Bruno.
I get it. You're excited. You know, all this is part
Yes.
of Snyder selling the team, so they got to create this enthusiasm with the fan base in order to kind of.
He's not selling the team.
Well, they're supposed to be exploring it or something. Don't worry, it's coming. It's coming. So here's the thing. Again, I think the Washington Commanders are doing, they're, winning the games they're supposed to win. They're shocking the world, right? Heineke, we'll see how we get down the stretch, how he does. But it begs this question, why did you go out and get Wentz to begin with? They had Heineke there. They seen what he could do. Rivera knew Heineke back in Carolina, so he kind of knows what this guy is capable of. Now, all of a sudden, he's supposed to be the savior of the Commanders and supposed to be taking them to the promised land. No, they know this is like a reason and a season for this guy. They're not sold on him. In fact, they're so not sold on him that they went out and got Carson Wentz. And they're going to keep looking for a quarterback this offseason, by the way, because they're not sold on this guy. Again, is he doing a great job? Is he creating this enthusiasm? If he's winning games, he's taking the team on his shoulders and stuff. Yeah, more power to him. But at the end of the day, as well as I do, that the Washington Commanders are going to be looking for a quarterback of the future in this offseason, no matter what. So he can win a couple games. He can upset the Eagles. He can do all these great things. But at the end of the day, he's going to be a backup come next year as well, just like Carson Wentz.
Okay, let's go on to the more important team, the most important team.
Absolutely.
Aguna, please.
Philadelphia Eagles, man. I almost had a heart attack this past Sunday watching these guys. And they went on the road to Indianapolis, a 4-win team, right? Former team of, Frank Wright was the head coach, got fired. Then you had Nick Sirianni going back to he was the OC out there for years, so he went back there. So it was an emotional game. One of those games where you knew the Eagles should win this game, but at the same time, how do they respond from the disappointing loss from the Commanders the week before? And they came out pretty flat. I mean, and it wasn't – part of it was the defense, that initial drive. The defense showed, its inability to stop the run a little bit. They brought in Sue. They brought in Lavelle Joseph. They made an impact right away. And you saw as the game went on, they made the adjustments, and they were able to – Taylor is by arguably one of the best backs in the league. And he had 50 yards that first half, and he was pretty much shut down for the next half. The defense kept them in it. What the struggle was on the offensive side of the ball. A lot of it was play calling. A lot of it was execution. I think Hurts played a really good game, but we had fumbles. We had turnovers. Some of the play calling, they tried to do a deep ball right out the gate in the second half. Hurts ended up getting a strip sack fumble. And then we had another playmaker, A.J. Brown, fumble, a pass that was on a real good scoring drive. But the difference between this game and the Commanders game was, they found a way to win. They went into the fourth quarter, 10 points down, and they were able to eke out a win in that last drive. You saw where Jalen Hurts just started running the ball. He got a pass downfield. We got a pass interference call that was critical. And then, of course, he took it in the end zone. And then the defense came back out and stopped Matt Ryan from going on the field and even getting in the field.
The defense, to be honest, the defense kept the offense in the game the entire game, even up until the end. If it weren't for the Philadelphia defense, we would have lost that game.
And that's interesting to say that because, a lot of fans have been critical of Gannon, who's the defensive coordinator. And his passive play calling when it comes to blitzing and things like that. I do think he saw what he needed to do as far as going out and getting some run stoppers in Sue and Joseph in order to kind of make.
All right, let's talk about Sue and Linville Joseph.
So Sue,
right, now let's talk about Sue and Linville Joseph. So now, why in the world would we get Sue when Sue has a record? He's had a domestic violence record in the past. What in the world are we doing?
So I don't know if Sue is bringing that nastiness to the defense, right? So
yeah, we don't need that type of nastiness. Isn't there somebody else besides Sue who can do that? Come on.
Well, he's pretty much one of the guys that were available. If you're not going to trade for a D tackle, you got to look at
why was he available? Hello,
because he chose to be. A lot of he
got
chose
some problems. He brings a lot of freaking baggage with him. He's got a lot of problems. He brings it with him. That's
so you're saying you don't want him? You don't want him on the team?
Exactly. I'd rather have. I'd rather have. Who's the guy? who's the guy from out California? He says guys don't like when you just go right in their face. They call him Mad something. What's his name? I'd rather have him out of retirement.
Aaron Donald?
No. From Sacramento. He was from Sacramento. He was.
Are you talking about
no, Todd?
Julius Irving?
Look, the guy. You know, there are some off the field.
Beast mode. I'm talking about beast mode. Beast mode.
Oh,
Bring beast mode. Marshawn Lynch. I'd rather have him.
Play a different position. Look, you need a D tackle needs to be in your face, get at the quarterback, get him off his spot, get in his face, get in his head. So it's going to be interesting to see Sue versus Aaron Rodgers this weekend coming up, because they have a bad history together. And unfortunately, you don't want to have a 15-yard penalty on a crucial Aaron Rodgers type drive, which in Jonathan Sue is he has a track record of doing. But you needed someone to get in there and stop the run. Jordan Davis is probably going to be out for another couple weeks. So they needed someone to get in there and stop the run. And Level Joseph and Sue, they put him in there on the first play of the game. These guys were chilling at home, watching ESPN Sports Center. A week later, they're both signed. They're both coming in there, and they were making an impact. I mean, I think they had a half sack. There were some disruptions back there. I mean, and then
they were making an impact. I'm sure they were. But
that's all. I mean, if you want to win the Super Bowl,
it's worth it that much.
If you're making a Super Bowl run, if you want to win the Super Bowl, if you're saying this is the year that we have a shot, you got to go out there and get playmakers that have been there, done that, and can.
That's like being desperate. That's like being desperate, and that's like Todd.
Well, we are desperate.
He looks for help from Keith and Steven.
Are you crazy?
That type of desperation.
So what other options do they have?
Not me.
Your draft, your young guy that came out of Georgia is on the mend for another couple weeks. The other guys in the rotation, Williams, even Hargrave, some of these guys they weren't getting home. You bring in some veteran help to help, because the thing is, even on the field, you're going to have Jordan Davis in the locker room with Sue and Level Joseph, one of the best D tackles, in our lifetime. So it's like, these guys are going to be, and you got Fletcher Cox. So he's in a room with these guys. He's all pros, won Super Bowl rings, have all this experience. So you got him, learning from them.
I don't know if it's worth the trouble.
I'll take that any day.
No.
Okay. All right.
And
it may not be worth this.
I don't think the team, they almost lost. And unless they get some decent centers and some forwards in there, they're not going to win.
Yeah, so Todd, you may need to retie your scarf there, like, maybe cutting off some circulation to the brain a little bit. But yeah, I got you. Thank you, Todd. All that you are, all that you do, and all that you are.
Oh gosh, you got some
don't let Steven get a hold of you, Todd.
Man, oh man, this is.
You're gonna be down for the count because Steven is letting you have it.
Yeah, because he's a thief.
So let's just switch over. Our hearts and our thoughts and prayers go out to the families of those victims in Colorado at that LGBTQ club that were shot and killed. Crime all over the country. It's just out of control. There is no gun control.
But you sound just like a Republican.
Law and order.
Oh, our thoughts and prayers go out to the victims. People get tired of hearing that. People need action, not thoughts. And prayers.
That's a horrible thing to say, isn't it? You're thinking about people and you're praying for people. That's a bad thing.
Well, it gets to be redundant and meaningless.
Your heart.
We need change, not thoughts.
Yeah, prayer is redundant. Prayer and thoughts are redundant.
So what type of change do we need, Keith?
Well, it's not going to come about politically. This is obviously a condition of mankind, and that's what the left doesn't get. They keep trying to take away guns, and even you talk about it, Stacey, where what are we going to do? Take the guns away from the bad people, huh? Yeah, right. That's not
weapons of war is what we want to take away.
You take the guns away, and because of the nature of man, they'll use knives. You
Good.
take the knife,
and it'll be less people dead.
You take the cars away, they'll use clubs. take the clubs
and
away.
there'll be less people dead.
Beer bottles.
Good deal.
It's
And
always
that would
have
kill
fun.
less people, wouldn't it?
No.
So what's
not-
the answer? I
More
mean,
people-
everyone's got these opinions,
Okay.
but I don't see any
People
answers.
will still
Crime-
find weapons.
the crime survey.
The answer
has already said that more people are killed with fists and feet than they are with guns, with rifles. And they specifically said rifles because everybody thinks the AR-15 is the big culprit, is the bad guy.
It's just the one they love to use.
That is not the case. So most people are killed with hands and feet. Just like at Dodger Stadium, there was a beating of a 60-year-old, I think it's 60-year-old plus, a man and his wife. They were beaten up in the parking lot. And this happens all the time over at Dodger Stadium for all kinds of reasons. So, don't tell me that guns are the problem. No, I'm an expert.
I was saying, you wanted a solution, right, Stacey?
Yes.
One solution is for radicals to stop portraying gay and transgender people as if they're some kind of boogeyman, some kind of enemy, some kind of
Why
predator.
are you saying they're portraying them that way? Who said that?
Has nothing to do with that.
The radicals say that. For example,
But what does that have to do with what happened in Colorado?
Has nothing to do.
I'll tell you what that has to do with it. When you repeat this craziness about gay people, oh, you can't say gay in school and you can't teach any thing about gay people. You can't let gay people read to your children. All this craziness, after a while, you get radicals like Keith and Stephen who take it seriously. And now they have an enemy. And so they're going to kill this enemy. And they're going to the bar where these people are and start killing them.
You hear that, Stephen? Isn't that, this is crazy. So now you want to make it an issue of, gay hate, hatred of gay.
Yes,
See,
yes, ma'am.
Yeah,
yes, ma'am.
You always want to do that. But, it's ridiculous.
That's the truth.
How many stories have we heard? I mean, no, Guna, you got to help me out on this. How many stories have we talked about or heard where gays have been the subject of violence? How many?
I'll tell you. I don't need him to tell you. I'll tell you. When you say you're against gay marriage, if you are, then don't marry a gay person. Isn't that smart? And then don't forget, you used to talk about the bathroom rule, and people are going to get raped if they give these people bathrooms. Remember, you used to talk all that craziness, but nobody got raped, so you stopped saying it.
So if you care so much about gays, why would you?
And then this transgender thing that you go on, this rampage about transgender, and
why would you open up an opportunity for transgender who are really men to go into a bathroom with women and then open the whole possibility of
it's not a possibility, and that's only in your sick mind.
No,
you see? And you got all these fairy tales and fantasies going on in your head, and so then somebody like you goes into a gay bar and starts shooting people.
Somebody help me.
They can't help you.
Sorry, Nas isn't here.
Stacey, even Stacey would disagree with that. A woman.
No. And you try to make an issue out of transgender people playing sports. And this is what you radicals do. So in doing that, you've created the enemy. And the enemy is being attacked.
If he cross-dressed and pretend to be a woman and go into the bathroom with women, do you find that...
cross-dressed and pretended to be a woman. All this is why the shooting occurred. Radicals like him and Marjorie Taylor Greene and more stupid people like that give people this fuel to find their enemy.
No.
See, and this is what the radicals do. They make sure they keep an enemy.
Why it's wrong? Because that same argument can be used against conservatives. Why, people that always talk about conservatives being fascists, and yet somebody could go and shoot a conservative because they think they are a fascist. Yeah, but that's not true.
Right.
See? So if somebody comes to me.
See, the problem you have here is you can't even start the conversation around any solution. because everyone wants to be a victim and everyone wants to have a scapegoat
for over a year.
So you saw, so I was just listening to this back and forth between.
Wait a minute.
So I just listening to the back and forth. You had Keith on one hand just denying and not even trying to engage in trying to, hey, why do you feel that way? He didn't even care. Because he's so entrenched in his indoctrinated in his views that he doesn't want to accept a counter argument. And then because there are two sides of this coin right here. There is something to be said about gun control as well as the other part of, gun safety. So it's like, one of the things, it's like you can't even have a conversation because, what did Keith do? The left is trying to take something from you, right? Didn't even want to talk about, hey, we had a tragedy. What can we do differently? What does law enforcement say about it? What do gun advocates say about it? There's a happy medium here that needs to be addressed. But see, you only have one side saying, I don't want to hear the other. I always hear it from the right say the left is trying to do this, and we don't want to hear anything from them. So that's why I'm sitting here listening, and I'm like, look, you're not even trying to engage Todd in a conversation about solutions. You're just trying to shut down his viewpoint, which actually takes away from your credibility.
No, I'm listening to Todd. I'm just saying it's ridiculous to think that because someone uses a gun and goes in to shoot gay people is necessarily saying that argument, using that argument of hate against gays. I mean, they're always trying to.
Keith, you constantly try to play the victim anytime you constantly play the victim on this show when you talk about the right coming after the left and all this other stuff. You just played the victim early on when you talked about America. Now, all of a sudden, when somebody else brings up the fact that they are victims, all of a sudden it's hard for you to believe and it's hard for you to accept or even talk about.
Well, okay, I'll tell you what. How about let's talk about the fact that there were men in that same club who took the guy down. There was a man who was in the military, who was an army. He was a special forces, I guess, and he was able to take that man down. That is what I commend.
Was he armed?
So let's look at the article.
Armed. So let's look at the article. He wasn't armed, but he knew self-defense, right?
The suspect, excuse me. Let's look at the article. According to CNN.com, this article was written by Elizabeth Wolf and Dakin Andone today at 11:21 a.m. Updated. The suspect, Aldrich, 22, faces 5 counts of first-degree murder and 5 counts of a bias-motivated crime causing bodily injury in connection to the shooting, according to an online docket in the El Paso County courts. He entered with tremendous firepower. This is the problem. They described him having an AR-style weapon. Why do people have to be so heavily armed? Shouldn't gun control going to be that you can't have weapons of war if you want to have guns and you're American citizens and you are not in the military doing the military's business
or police?
Yeah, I mean, and I'm talking to law enforcement officers about, how they feel about this and, balancing between someone's individual right to bear arms and, just being outgunned or outmanned in the street with people who, may have been good citizens and acquired these weapons illegally. But then because of some type of mental health illness or some type of decision or accountability on their part, they decide to turn this on other individuals and other people. So, it isn't one of those things where we can say, hey, you know what? It's my right to have a rocket launcher because I need to defend myself. And then all of a sudden, just because someone says we need to do a background check on you before you acquire this rocket launcher, all of a sudden it's like, all of a sudden it's like,
you're
what?
Stepping on my rights.
Constitutional rights. Attacking
me.
So Stephen,
hey, I'm using your playbook, Stephen. I'm going to the extreme.
Stephen,
how do you like them apples?
So Stephen, look at this article. It says that he entered with tremendous firepower. Okay.
Nobody knows what firepower is. That's not true.
He said the gunman. Wait a minute. Let's have Stephen. He says the gunman appeared heavily armed and wearing a military-style flak jacket as he arrived at the club.
He was hunting.
Why?
Bulletproof.
He was hunting.
Why
for
does
deer.
he have to have all that? And he's not at war with the U.S. military, because the U.S. military, Stephen, is not at war. So why does that person have to go into the club with that type of firepower?
Because he went hunting for gay people.
Stephen?
Steven, what the hell are you?
He's
Because
Googling
you
it.
can
So
have
while
any
he's doing
gun
that,
Are you rolling? What are you
that
doing?
you want.
Stop rolling
And if
the
you
blunt.
use it nefariously, or if you use
Spell it.
because you hated white people, stop talking to Guna.
Oh my gosh! Here we go.
Because you can use any weapon you want if you're crazy or stupid. So this is what happens. Or if you hate gay people, you're stupid. There's something wrong with you. It's not because the innocent white people are the innocent black people who get killed in Chicago every day. Nobody needs more
Why are you
protection. But every
defining
time
the
a gay
conversation?
person gets killed, everything must stop. The whole world must stop. A gay person got shot. Gay people died. You know what? People get killed every day, no matter what sexualities, proclivities that they have. People get killed every day. But if you kill a gay person, we must be really
you see,
upset about
let me
it.
say this.
Yeah, no,
we
okay.
are
Let me
upset about
say this.
everybody who
This is
dies
that
for
kind of
Thank you, Steve.
radicalism.
straight,
He's
or
been
anything else.
radicalized.
And
This is why he.
guns are not the issue. The gun is not the issue.
I think we interrupted Stephen from burning his cross.
Stephen has been radicalized.
He has been
is burning my-
radicalized.
why would I
You sound like
burn
a freaking nut,
my
man.
cross?
You sound like a
You know,
nut. You know, because gay people get
I
shot.
don't
You
sound like a
talking about
nut.
human beings.
What I'm
You-
saying
you
is
do.
Talking about
people
human
get killed
beings.
every day. It doesn't matter if they're gay. It doesn't matter if they're straight. It doesn't matter if they're black or white.
Nobody's
People get
even
murdered
saying-
every
nobody's saying
day.
it doesn't matter.
There's no such thing as
You're
a hate
making it
crime.
about
When you
race,
get killed,
sexuality.
they either
You're
hate
making it
you or
about
they're
this.
crazy as hell.
You're making it about this.
It doesn't
You know,
matter
for a
what
guy-
for
For men,
Well, actually,
for
it
men
does.
who
What
act
made
like
them-
they are so able
it.
to reason, I don't see why. a
matters
good-
is people kill people.
like,
And if
so-
you're one of those
because
people on
you
the
guys-
show that kills garbage,
Laguna, why do you lack such understanding of the English language?
No,
Why do
I'm
you-
not,
why do-
there's nothing about lacking understanding. It's just calling out your BS when you call out your BS.
No,
You
but
don't
I
have
mean,
an
you call
argument,
it
you don't have
BS.
logic. You just
No,
want to
you
go to
call
these
it BS.
extremes and think
You
that
call
that's
it
logical.
because,
It's not.
what he's saying makes sense. If you think about it, what he's saying makes sense. We're talking
you,
about
Because
nature
you're a radical. It
versus
doesn't make sense.
the.
Why?
that's
Why?
what we're
You're
talking
saying you're coming on here saying everybody dies every day, so it doesn't matter what we do. What type of logic
No.
is that?
That's right.
I mean,
And let me
if
be
people
more
die because of
specific.
this, people die because they get in a car accident. Why should
Yeah,
we care
people
about
die
the
every
shooting?
day. That's
I mean,
right. Let me
Come on.
let me
Let's
say
have
this.
a logical conversation about solutions. If you're incapable of doing that, then you need not.
They
you don't
are.
need to be on this show.
Well, we do it,
Sorry,
but
you're
you
gonna
don't.
get roasted.
You don't seem to understand.
No,
You're lacking-
no. It's not that I don't understand. You can't articulate an argument. There's a difference there.
No,
gotta
but you
come
don't
with it. You can't come with this BS, Keith. You got to come with some logic.
understand any
No,
reasonable.
no. I understand perfectly. I let
thing.
you hang yourself. I let you walk
No.
down this
No,
road.
no,
of
no,
logical,
you
and I
lack
listen very
All
clearly.
right. Okay, I
That's
want
really
to move
the
this.
problem. You lack understanding.
You're on mute,
You
Stacy.
don't have understanding. You're not.
Okay.
Thank you. I
Not
have-
Look, Keith, if you want to put it back on me because you can't do what you're trying to articulate, go ahead. But you're just using me as a scapegoat like you always
You
do.
Okay,
lack-
cousin Todd.
You need wisdom.
All right. Now this is what I was going to say
Wisdom,
to rebut
Lord.
Don't get
Stephen.
mad, get educated.
You need wisdom.
Okay. Shh. All right. Listen.
This
Stephen
kindergarten stuff.
was saying people die every day, but he didn't say that when the woman got shot on January 6th for trying to break in the Capitol building. He thought that was bloody murder, and a black guy shot her. On and on and on.
I'm laughing
And
because
so-
Stephen has that cap on. I
I'm
wasn't laughing at
ignoring
what
him.
happened, but look at
Man.
Stephen.
And so don't look at him.
He's in Proud Boy mode.
Keep your eyes on me.
He's in Proud Boy mode.
They
So
murdered
what
her.
I'm saying is
She was a veteran.
that was a big
She
deal.
served
And then
this
he
country.
talks about
She was unarmed, and they
be
murdered
quiet,
her.
be quiet.
And
I'm
you're
talking.
smiling.
Thank you,
Then
Stephen.
what he does is talk about the
Look at
people
him.
that are in
What about
jail for committing a crime.
See,
People go to
Stephen,
jail for committing
understand.
crimes every day. but he always talked about these people. They're what did he call them? Like refugees. These were
See,
criminals
they
breaking
lack
in the
understanding.
Capitol building. And
Stephen, they
so
have no,
they were dealt with accordingly. And
they
when
don't
you break in the Capitol, you go to jail.
they don't
Okay.
You're
understand.
charged with
They-
breaking
they-
and
Yeah.
entering.
Keith, I
And
get it.
so-
It's our fault that you can't communicate.
See, they don't
Okay.
have wisdom. They don't have
And
wisdom.
so
Yeah, now you're going to attack us because
the
you can't
point
communicate.
I'm making is
I mean, he passed. You see how he passed right over it?
Okay,
The woman who was shot was unarmed, and yet, if a black man,
She
All right.
was unarmed. She was not supposed to be in the Capitol.
breaking into the Capitol. How would they know whether she
Go
was
ahead, cousin
armed?
Todd. Finish
I
your point,
know.
please.
What is
How
that?
would
That's
they,
ridiculous.
how would the police
Finish
know
your
whether
point,
this
cousin Todd.
criminal
Just
was
make
armed
your
or
point,
not?
cousin Todd. Move on. Make your
So-
point.
And why don't you try to break into a bank or a Capitol building and see what happens to you, Keith? So that was pretty good. What I was
Yeah, put some
saying
lotion
before
on them
was
hands. Put some
that
lotion on them
when
hands.
people when when people
Cocoa butter.
make enemies out of a certain group of people, which is what the Republicans have been doing, well, then these radicals have somebody to go after, which is what
thank
happened.
you, cousin Todd.
And
Nas,
did you see Marjorie Taylor Greene, her tweet today?
no, what was her tweet?
I forgot, but if you have Twitter, you could read it and then let us know what it says. But it said something ridiculous about people cutting off their genitals to be something they're not.
Cousin Todd.
All that kind of craziness. This is the nastiness that comes out of the Republican Party after Donald Trump.
Okay, Nas. We were talking about, Nas, when you came on. If you can just sum it up real quick for us, is what is the solution for gun control when we have people using AR-15s and other type of war-related weapons instead of just using handguns and, really pulverizing innocent people in all the states of the United States. And Keith mentioned to me earlier today that this outgrowth or this amount of crime only seems to happen in democratic cities. Is that true? Oh, wait. I don't think we can hear you. Wait a minute. Okay, go ahead.
Yeah, so first things first, major populations in bigger cities tend to vote Democrat. This is a causation does not equal correlation situation. So when you tie violence that happens in a city, you say, oh, well, see, that must be because they're a Democrat voting city. It's like, no, that's where the majority of urban areas are. Like any big city, people tend to vote that way. Similar when you look at rural areas. And here's the crazy thing. When you actually look at the crime data, you find out there's a huge increase in violence, and including murder, suicide, and also overdoses in rural areas, in rural cities. But you don't tie that to, well, I guess they voted Republican and then therefore they got violent. Like, no, there's a huge list of reasons why violence happens in any place. But the last thing the list would be what that person voted for locally. So, that's a conservative talking point that at this point, I think the people who you vote for actually lack respect for you, which is why they give you talking points like that are that thin and easily seen through. As far as the violence thing, I guess I'm not going to be the good guy tonight on the show because I'm going to say there is no answer. Every country has a fatal flaw that they're not willing to confront or try and fix. People are too locked into their positions, and there is no meeting of the minds or coming to the middle on it. And I would say gun violence is one for America. I think this is going to be something when you do write the tombstone of America. This is going to be one of the ills of America that was never able to be fixed. But no, honestly, I don't think there's an answer. I think the sides are too entrenched on their positions, and one side has decided that from Sandy Hook to evolving, the consequences don't matter.
All right.
So
So-
I don't think we can fix it.
So,
And what about specifically for this gay bar? Why do you think that bar was targeted?
Well, I mean, and see, and this is where it gets funny, though. This is where it gets funny. So the same people who make that ridiculous correlation between a violent crime and a city, when you show them that there's a particular group of people in a building and a person who writes a long epitaph and long social media posts about how much they hate those people, and they go there to do violence with to those people, then the person says, well, violence happens every day. And then they can't see correlation between this person's hatred, the hatred being fueled online. I mean, there have been multiple hospitals who've had bomb threats called in over the past few months based on just some of this, culture war discourse from the right. So, yeah, I mean, great point, Cousin Todd, because for some reason, all of a sudden, Stephen and Keith become blind after they just told us about the violence in Democratic voting cities. All of a sudden, when they see a targeted hate crime happening where somebody specifically wants to kill a certain group, then all of a sudden they don't understand.
Okay, so let's go on to Hakeem Jeffries. Is announced his bid to replace Nancy Pelosi as the leader for the speaker or for the minority, because the midterm elections show that the majority has been accomplished by the GOP.
Gay people wouldn't even be in America anymore.
Shut up, Steve.
Gay people wouldn't
What
even
are you
be
saying, Stephen?
the person that people as much as they say that they're attacked. Gay people aren't attacked like that. And then you have black people that are attacked, or you have white people that are attacked because they're white, or if you have Asian people attacked because they're Asian. Just because somebody's gay doesn't mean it doesn't happen to anybody else. Because somebody goes in and shoots up a gay club, that doesn't mean that this country is so hatred.
Stephen,
go to Iran.
Stephen,
Let everybody who's gay go to Iran and see how you get treated. This country bends over backwards for gay people.
Stephen, we're on to Hakeem Jeffries.
Yeah,
and
we don't need
and
to
U.S. Congress.
Racist point.
We're not talking about that. So is Hakeem Jeffries ready, Nas? And will he win?
Yeah, of course he's ready, and yes, he'll probably win. The donors like him. If you've seen some of his ads with, I don't want to say something that starts sounding like Kanye or somebody, but if you've seen his little ads for the powers that be and the people who write the checks for the DNC, he is a corporate centrist to the fullest. He's made it known what he thinks are actual progressives and has fought really hard against them. So he's a typical corporate Democrat, and that's the person they want in that seat to make sure the party never goes too far left or starts to do some of the things that they promised on the campaign trail.
So when you say he is a corporate, so that means that he is about the money and not the people.
Pretty much, yeah. It's kind of how it works.
I mean, that's like all politicians.
But he says he's for the people of New York. How do you do that? And you're not for the people of your district. What
do you mean for the people? I mean, at the end of the day, they need donations to get elected, right?
Right, so but Hakeem Jeffries talks from the Democratic playbook in terms of making things available for the common person, the teacher, the union worker, on and on and on.
Are we talking the Democratic platform, or are we talking the speakership or the minority speakership, which is what he's running for? I mean, again, you're looking at having to whip votes, having to get people.
That's my point. How can you be both?
You got to do both. If you're a politician, you're supposed to do
both.
How
can he be both, though? How can he focus on the people and still be the leader in the Democratic House?
It's part of their agenda. I mean, he's pushing their agenda. Therefore, by default, it helps the people, right? So you have, he needs to whip the votes. They need to develop a platform. I mean, yeah, that's how it works. And on the Republican side too, you got to whip the votes. You got to get consensus. You got to build coalitions. I think Nas makes a good point about the centrist aspect of it, because I think that's a huge, that's huge for. When it comes to campaign donations, when it comes for, defining the platform, understanding where the money's coming from and being able to go out there and get the money to help the whatever agenda they're trying to push, you got to be able to whip the votes and whip the money. So it's like, how effective of a person is he at doing that. If he's effective, of course, he should be a shoo-in for. I'm just surprised Clyburn didn't try to, position himself. Again, he's probably seen as an old
if you
guard.
think about
I think
Clyburn,
Clyburn is more of a
Stephen,
kingmaker than a king himself. So I think he's
right.
probably.
If you think about Clyburn, though, Stephen, I think that Clyburn is probably a little too old, and I think bringing in Jeffries and the other two leaders is kind of bringing in a new age, right? When you bring in Jeffries and you bring in who is a woman and a man, you bring in, the next generation, right, Stephen?
Yeah, but indeed, being older myself.
Wait a minute, Nas. Wait.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Go ahead, Stephen.
Hey, Nas. Stephen does not sound like Nas. Even though he is older, I will never say there's a problem with somebody because they're older, because older people can do anything. Look at Keith. Look at me. Look at a lot of other people that are older. Age is just a number for people who, can do well. But what's wrong with him is his policies. It's his way of thinking. It's his way he does things. It's the way he tries to be a kingmaker. It's the way he pushed Joe Biden the way he did, which he shouldn't have done, which is in hindsight, and it didn't take much hindsight to find out that Joe Biden is the biggest piece of garbage that ever happened to the Democrat Party, but he was pushed by him. So there's a myriad of reasons why he ought to go down in the dustbin. He ought to go in the dustbin. And Stacey, like you say, I agree. Younger people need to come along that have more sense, or hopefully they have more sense than what he's had and what he tried to do, because he was stuck in the past. And we need people that are stuck, that are in the present.
You're talking about Joe Biden?
I gotta get Nas in. Wait, let me get Nas in, and then we gotta move on.
I'm talking about Clyburn, who supported and he pushed Joe Biden to the front. He screwed up. That was a huge mistake.
Can we talk about?
Let me get Nas in.
Let me get Nas in. Disaster.
Okay, go ahead, Nas.
Yeah,
we probably won't talk about
politics. Let's ignore everything Stephen said. You can say what you want about Clyburn, but as far as his party, he was able to lead his party to what? Getting another 4 years. So he did his job. That's what he's supposed to do. But the thing I was going to say is, this is not necessarily a critique about Jeffries. This is really a critique about the position. In that position, the main modus operandi is money. You have to be the one that they're comfortable with, as far as the big donors and the super PACs and the corporate forces who are gonna, be a big part of what your party is able to do and what your party kind of stops as far as what the constituents actually want from your party. So I'm not knocking Jeffries in that sense. He's playing the role that was already there. He's the perfect fit for it. So I could see him coming in and doing a good job of it. But again, I'm condemning the role, not him.
Okay, so let's also look at Keith and then Cousin Todd. Let's look at McCarthy and how Republicans say they won't. 3 House Republicans say they won't support him and they can beat him. Keith, is that true? Can Matt Gaetz beat McCarthy?
He can, but it might be difficult because we still stuck with, we got those rhino Republicans. We have McConnell, and, McConnell is a piece of work. I don't really care much for him at all. But we'll see what happens. I mean, that's all we can do is see what happens here, because.
But I'm talking about the House. McConnell's in the Senate.
No, I understand that, but that doesn't mean he doesn't have influence in other areas. But anyway, the point is, when it comes to voting, and look, they know how to crack that whip, as it were. They know how to get these people.
So Cousin Todd, if you look at this article by Fox News published November 18th at 4:12 p.m., it says Representative Matt Gaetz says conservatives have enough votes to upset Kevin McCarthy's plan to be House Speaker. Will they do it?
I don't know, because you're talking about a radical group of people. So I don't know what these radicals are going to do. It's funny because McCarthy was talking about what was that? Just wait till I'm done.
What makes them radicals? What makes them radicals to you? What makes radicals?
Okay, because
They want lower taxes.
I'll tell you.
And they
I'll
don't want.
tell you. You asked me. Let
radicals.
me tell you. He said.
Okay.
He said how he was going to kick the Democrats off of their committees because Ilhan Omar, for example, said something against the Jews, and we haven't forgotten it. But he forgot what Marjorie Taylor Greene said about the Jews. Yet he's going to promote her on every committee she wants to be on. So this is the radical hypocrites I'm talking about.
What did she say? What did Marjorie Greene say?
Oh, she said something about the Jews with their laser beams. They're the ones that's controlling the weather. Space lasers. Yeah. And so all kinds of crazy stuff like that. And don't forget, she thinks it's a hoax what happened to Sandy Hook. And she's just a complete maniac. And I think you know that. But nevertheless, so these radicals, I don't know what they're going to do.
Jews do have laser beams.
But
the Jews do have laser beams.
Well, see, there you go.
There you go. Okay.
Her flock.
Thank you. I'm glad you straightened us out on Jews having laser beams. So these radicals, this is why, you see what Stephen just said? How could you know what they're going to do, say, or think? They're completely insane.
So you didn't answer my question about whether or not they're going to overthrow McCarthy.
I said, I don't know what crazy people are going to do. McCarthy's crazy.
They're not going to overthrow McCarthy. All right. But what's going to happen is McCarthy is going to have to capitulate some.
He's going to get more radical.
So what's going to happen is you're going to see this just shift in agenda where you're going to be investigating Hunter Biden's laptop. They're probably going to try to bring Dr. Fauci up on war crimes. They're going to probably talk about Benghazi. They're going to do all this grievance politics.
For 2 years and then lose in 2024.
Radical. That's why we talk about radical. I mean, because you have an opportunity now with divided House. You have the House with the Republicans and the Senate with the Democrats. Then you can come up with, consensus around policy at this point because everyone has a stake in the game. The problem is you have people like Keith on here who calls people rhino if they even engage with the Democrats. So especially on the Republican side, they're being measured on how they try to stop the Democrats and how to stop things from happening. Where on the Democrats, and you look at because you look at the perception here. Stephen just said, Biden is a piece of shit and all this other stuff. But he's been one of the most effective presidents in the last 30 years.
They're not interested
in that small period of time. Whether you agree with it or not, he's been very effective. Even in foreign policy with baiting Russia into this conflict and supplying to Ukraine and making NATO stronger. There's a lot of things that he's done in the last 4 years or last 2 years that he's not getting credit for, right? Right, wrong, or indifferent. He's being effective and people are jealous of it. And that's why you hear on this show, he's this, he's that. Okay, why don't you like him? Oh, just because he's a Democrat and again, you can't talk about policy.
And they never talk about policy. What are they going to do for these next 2 years? No word about policy.
Is the House going to fix inflation? You've been complaining about inflation all this time. What are the Republicans in the House going to do?
They're not going to do anything. And Stephen and Keith are glad about it. All they want is get Joe Biden and get his son.
Everybody, with the Republicans. He wants to tell you what
unfortunately, with the Republicans, you have this grievance politics. You get on this show. They're just grievance. They're just complainers.
You're breaking up, Stephen. You're breaking up, unfortunately.
He just wants to whine about things.
No Republican. He's
Stephen, you're breaking up.
Cousin.
He's babbling again. I don't know. He's saying some babble stuff. The FBI is blocking him out.
He said something about Todd's cousin, but let me move on.
That would be you, Stacey.
I'm telling you, it's not working.
Look, the FBI is shutting you down.
Aguna.
You need to coordinate with the Russian troll farm.
Don't
attack me. Coordinate with the Russian troll farm, who's giving you your talking points.
Aguna is Todd's cousin. They're the same person.
And
cousin is as much as Aguna is a Republican.
Is your boy toy.
Yeah. This is the part of the show where Steven's going to attack me versus making a point because he has no point, right? Come back with some facts. Come back with some articulate arguments. Don't attack me just because you can't.
So if you look here, Senator Graham, CNN.com article written by Sarah Murray
I have many
and
points.
Chris Ude, updated at 4:50 p.m. today, says that Lindsey Graham testified before Georgia grand jury investigating 2020 election aftermath. Why is this important, Cousin Todd?
Because you've got to find out why these people were breaking the law to give the election to Donald Trump. Why would he call another state and involve himself in their business? That's illegal. Just like Trump talking about just find me 63,000 votes. Come on, guys, it's all I need. Now, when Stephen was normal, he would say that was wrong. That's illegal. He had no business doing that. But since he's been radicalized, that's okay now. But when President Trump was president, before he became president, he said, I could shoot somebody in the middle of Fifth Avenue and not lose one vote. And Stephen said, he's calling you stupid. These people don't know he's calling you stupid. Remember that? And now guess who got stupid? Hi, Stephen.
Okay.
Well, Stephen, I have to wait. You have to let Stephen respond to that. Stephen.
No, Stephen's busy. Stephen's busy rolling crack or joint.
The man who is dressed, the man who is Taliban.
You're breaking up, Stephen. You're breaking up.
I can't.
So, Keith, do you want to respond to that?
Has never
Keith,
worked.
do you want to respond to that? Because Stephen is breaking up.
Communism has never worked.
What the hell are you talking about?
So, Stephen, do you? I mean, Keith, somebody respond. I'm going to move on because you guys.
Go ahead. Respond for you. Respond for your surrogate.
I can't respond
for your husband.
Go ahead, Stacey. Move on.
Okay. He can't respond. They only got one brain. And Fox News didn't give them their talking point.
I can't respond. You guys will interrupt. Go ahead.
Right. Okay. Go ahead, Nas.
We welcome your stupidity.
I think Aguna laid it out well. This is basically a negotiation. I don't think they actually want to topple him as far as being the leader, but they want to put pressure on so they can get something, whether it be membership on certain boards or whatever they're going to get out of this, or just to be able to kind of direct where they go. And I think Aguna probably laid it out the best, because we're going to see the Hunter Biden stuff. We'll see, whatever other culture war thing of the week out there, because they can't govern. They actually just have to use rhetoric. And think about this. Go back to John Boehner and then go to McCarthy and everybody else. And what you see is when they're put in a position where they have to actually govern, where you have to deal with the other side, you have to actually come up with policy, it ends up being a failing proposition, because all you're going to do is be smeared as a rhino. You won't be able to get anything done. And then they're going to accuse you of failure and then push somebody else in that chair and do the same thing to them, because they don't actually have an agenda.
That's right.
But as long as Keith and Stephen are satisfied with culture war rhetoric and calling somebody a this and calling somebody a that, as long as they can keep doing that without governing, they're going to continue to do so. They just see you guys as easy rubes to satisfy.
Yeah.
And make
no
mistake. And make no mistake, Marjorie Taylor Greene and the Gates of the world, it's all about raising money for these guys. They don't care about governing. They don't care.
No. They wouldn't know how to govern.
So that they can raise money. Even if you look at what's going on with Herschel Walker down there in Georgia, and how the Make America Great or the Save America Trump campaign is raising money for Herschel Walker, but they're taking 90% of it. And unless you designate, I mean, it's a grift. And it's like, these people love the red meat. They love the grievance politics. But if you look at the money, the power, and the influence and what's really happening, you're just being conned. So they're going to put pressure on McCarthy.
How do you have?
They're going to put pressure on him. But at the end of the day, they're just trying to raise money for re-election.
How do you have such insight about what they're doing? What do you know?
Because I read books.
We've been
wired. It's called having a brain.
but
All right,
all you
so
have
let
to
me move
do
on.
is look at what happened with Donald Trump telling people like you it was the stolen election. Give me money. Give me money to stop the steal. And dumb people gave him money to stop the steal.
You guys
all
really
right,
have
so,
a lot of things that are going on. That's amazing.
all right, so let's look at the
150 million.
screen. If you can look at the screen, I'm showing you the hill.com article on the climate change conference in Sharm el Sheikh, Egypt, wrapped up early this past Sunday with an agreement to compensate developing countries for the damages they have suffered from climate change. While developing countries have long pushed for a fund for the suffering they have endured from climate change, wealthy countries, including the U.S., had resisted the idea. But that changed this year, and those developing nations got a fund establishing such climate reparations. Okay, how did they get climate reparations? And I didn't get my 40 acres and a mule. Keith.
Well, the question is, why isn't China on the list of reparating somebody? I mean, China is supposed to have this great economy, and China has made great gains over the years. So why aren't they on the list? Why is it that America always has to flip the bill for everything? We're paying for Ukraine war. We're doing all of that. And so, I mean, maybe you can ask the sage himself. This guy, Mr. Aguna, he may be able to, Mr. Aguna or Nas, they probably will give you an answer that they know about because they have all access to
intellectualism.
Yeah, these guys are really science.
Okay, Nas.
They're so intellectual that they don't even understand the nature of man. They don't even understand it.
I'm ideating. Keith, be quiet. I'm ideating.
So they want to redistribute the wealth of the Americans and take it and give it to somebody else. That's called redistribution, and that is a Marxist idea.
And stop bastardizing globalization. I know you're not a globalist.
It's more realistic thought. From all we know about development and what it takes for a country to become an emerging power and everything else, there's going to be a lot of pollution. So when you look at China and India, when you look at smokestacks everywhere, like that's what you see. What America was 100 years ago, what England was 100 years ago, yada, yada, you get the deal. So the thinking is, since climate change affects everybody, and this goes into Stacey's other question about why hasn't she got her 40 acres and a mule? Well, because they see reparations as a thing just for Black people that will not affect them in a positive way, but climate change they look at as, oh, this could hurt me too. So in that thinking, the idea is, okay, if we set aside this money, this fund, and we get these countries as they develop, not to do it as we did as far as how much pollution, how much it's going to affect the rest of the world. In that way, everybody gets a better outcome. So they're just going to try to encourage these other countries not to become what Beijing is right now, not to become what New Delhi is right now, as far as their development, because development in the Western way of thinking, especially globally, it's going to be a lot of damn pollution if you actually, start to develop really quickly. And, all of a sudden you get all of these different silos emerging, buildings everywhere, and don't even start talking about crypto and everything else that affects everything from electric grids to water sources and, just the whole globe. So instead of having that, that pushback and that fallout from that, they're saying, okay, if we pay these countries not to do it that way, maybe we get better outcomes.
Okay, I don't think that is, well, based on what you just said, Nas, and Aguna, you can say it, but you got to say it very quickly because we're out of time. That doesn't seem to be the right way to solve it. Throw the money at the wall and see what sticks, just because here's
the thing.
It may work.
And I'm going to come at this from
that's what I got from it.
Yeah, I know. So I'm gonna come at this from a STEM perspective, right? So you have an opportunity for the U.S., who is the reserve currency for the world. We're the number one economy in the world, and so we have a chance to lead, right? We have a chance to lead in climate emissions and things like that, and set these standards. And while people like Keith and Steven see that as like a green agenda or a green thing, it's actually an innovation thing where we as Americans can invest and get involved with and lead the world and actually make a lot of money from it, right? So it's like, you know, we're staying ignorant in this populist conservative viewpoint, and we're not looking at the huge, the free market aspect of this, in which, yeah, these developing countries are going to be developing in this green world in which they're not going to have as many emissions. But it's also an opportunity for we as Americans to innovate and to invest and to grow and to provide leadership in this and influence in this aspect. Therefore, maintaining our standard in the world versus going to a China who's actually building infrastructure in Africa and doing all these things and taking away that influence. So I see people are seeing innovation as a threat versus an opportunity to actually make money, which is ridiculous.
Okay, Cousin Todd. And then we got to go into our roundtable.
What I got from Nas was a good point, because what they're doing is preventing them from becoming another us, which America is good at. For example, they don't like it when these Arab countries make quote unquote slaves out of their women and won't let them go to school, only the men, and they have to wear certain things and they can't learn to read and all. And then when you think about it, that's the same exact thing white people did to blacks. Wouldn't let them, it was illegal to teach them to read. They were their property to be raped whenever they wanted. So it's almost like they're saying to America, how dare you tell us what to do right after you got finished doing it? So America is not respected.
That's
because
not a true observation. That's a lie.
What is the lie? You were a slave.
We are respected by the world. We've done so much more good than we've done bad.
Wait a minute.
He was elected.
Hurry up.
That affected this too. So remember, we're actually 4 years behind. China's created more solar power in the last 4 years than we have globally combined.
Okay, thank you.
They're already ahead of us.
Okay,
Whoop-de-doo.
go ahead, Stephen.
Whoop-de-doo, whoop-de-doo.
Yeah, everything that China has done has been garbage and bad for this country. All the solar power, everything they've done, the electric cars, everything China has done, and that we need China for, and doing all of our pharmaceutical medicines, it's all bad for this country. Everything China is doing is to take over this country. And you have somebody like Nas who's to see China is not a good country. It's our enemy. Oz, understand that? Is there?
Are you okay?
No, he's breaking up.
It's
our enemy. China is
I actually understand him better when it's like this.
The Communist Party, the Chinese Communist Party, the CCP is the enemy of the United States, and there's
is Russia our enemy?
But
like
they're good enough to make Trump ties. They make
Trump
Trump ties, though.
that are trying.
They make Trump ties, man. Come on. They got to be good for something.
Round table.
You
Can I
want
just say for the record, stating that someone is your enemy,
Round
it
table.
because you think it's going to.
what are you going to do about it? Of course, always the follow-up question.
China
He's not going to answer that. He's not going to answer that.
Going across the continent of Africa,
And
going to all these other countries, trying to have influence, spending money on their infrastructure and their
China
buildings.
does.
We're going to have way
Stephen
more
doesn't
influence
think
and you're on
than
China's
we do unless we get involved in things like this. But that's difficult to do when you have morons who just yell out communists and China, and that's all in. Well, okay, that's the question.
What do you got to do about it, Stephen?
Africa.
Stephen,
Hey,
China is
you're breaking up.
China, Stephen.
Africa.
Stephen,
Let's boycott Steve.
you keep breaking up. That's why we can't hear you
China.
breaking up.
China.
Stephen,
We-
we're going
we
to start
can
our
hear him.
roundtable discussion,
We can hear him.
and we only have a few minutes. If you look at the screen, the Supreme Court clears the way for the House of Representatives to get Trump's taxes. So we're going to start with Keith, then Stephen, Nas, Aguna, and Cousin Todd. Based
don't
on
care
that
about his taxes.
information, Keith, that you see on that screen, how does that affect, one, the investigation into former President Trump, and his announcement for running for the presidency, in which he will get now more Secret Service for his family than he had before?
Well, let's see. They've been investigating Trump for the past, 7 years? Well, 16, let's see, 20. Yeah, about 7 years now or so.
I wonder why.
Terrible. I guess my math is off, guys. But anyway, the point is they've been investigating Trump for all this time, and yet they found nothing that could really bring about a violation of his Fourth Amendment right, which says the right of the people to be secure in their persons, houses, papers, and effects against unreasonable search and seizure shall not be violated. If they can violate his right, his natural right, they can violate mine and yours and Aguna's and Nas and
Didn't
Todd.
he have top
and
secret papers at his house?
That's a very dangerous thing.
They don't belong
Okay.
And
to
he
him.
has and
They
the
don't
second,
belong to him.
the Article 2 says of the Constitution that he has the right to
take
declassify.
top secret papers to his house.
But he didn't do that.
Which
He didn't
he
do
did.
it.
He did
didn't
do it.
it.
And he doesn't
didn't
have
do
to
it.
verbalize it to you and
You
to
just
me.
think it. We're supposed to read his mind.
Boogly, 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 too.
Oh,
You're
I
declassified,
declassified them in my mind, and you guys got to figure it out.
Okay, wait a minute. One more question, Keith.
If you keep
Keith,
this up, Stephen
one
more
will never
question.
marry you.
Quiet, everyone. I'm declassifying documents in my
Keith,
mind.
one more question.
Yeah.
If you look at the screen, it shows that Herschel Walker, second
Why are you asking
accuser.
him another question? You just want to make fun of him. Go ahead.
Second
I
accuser
just declassified. Hold on. I
The
just
second
declassified a bunch of
accuser-
documents.
calls on Herschel Walker to deny abortion to her face. She comes, this is 3 hours ago. She's coming forward. And will this make a difference in the runoff race in Georgia? Keith.
Well, it should not make a difference because the Democrats like abortion. They agree with abortion. And if he paid for it, well, then they should be happy about that.
Okay,
Are
thank
you happy about it?
Yeah, no. Is he
That's
representing
what about the
you-
Republican.
Todd, if you keep talking like this, I have to go off the show right now and you don't get to say the word. You don't get to say a word.
Okay.
Woo!
Okay.
Isn't that great? Isn't that
Stephen,
great?
same question to you about President Trump's taxes and Herschel Walker's second accuser. Keith? Stephen?
He's rolling crack. He can't.
No, he's declassifying documents.
Oh.
He doesn't have to verbalize it.
Hi, Stephen. You're doing a show right now. How you doing tonight?
Go play the piano. Go play your piano, man.
Did
Okay.
Obama verbalize it to us? Did Obama?
Look at the pivot. Look at the what about it. Here goes the pivot.
Can y'all hear me?
Yeah, go
Yes.
ahead.
Can y'all hear me? Donald Trump
Yes.
will put this off long enough till the Republicans get in office, and this point will be mute. And the Democrats know it will be mute. The same way the Democrats knew that Joe Biden could not wipe out college debt from student loans. It's the same thing. It's all a bunch of tactics. It's all a bunch of lies. It's all a bunch of gimmicks. And that's what the Democrats have. And people are becoming wise to it. But it's taken a really long time because you know what? Aguna's been right. And Nas has been right, and Todd's been right. There's a lot of stupid people in this country, but a lot of these stupid people can be educated, and they're being educated. And it's so blatantly obvious how bad the Democrats have been bad to this country. And I'm not saying there's Republicans that are better. There's just people who care more about this country that have the populist numbers that the Democrats or Republicans don't have. And we're going to take over like the Tea Party. Because we care about our country. And if you care about our country, if you're Democrat, Independent, Republican, join us. We want a better country for all of us. The populist movement means the populist movement means we help the people who actually work. That's what the populist movement is. If you want to be the bourgeoisie, even on the right or the left, then you're nothing to us.
That's
Okay, thank you. All right, now same questions to you. I don't have to repeat it. You remember, right?
Yeah, as long as I don't get ran over by this ambulance.
Go ahead.
I don't know, man. It's loud.
All right. Aguna, do you want to go? And then Niles will go when he comes back.
Yeah, so you heard it just, I mean, very articulate right there. Grievance politics, complain, and whine. Look, Trump should have disclosed his taxes prior to the election. And why should he have disclosed it? Because we need to understand where he's getting his money from. You know, if he's going to hold the highest office in the land, he should be able to disclose that. This fact that he can try to declassify documents in his mind, mentally, or whatever Keith was trying to say is ridiculous. That those weren't his documents; those are the people's documents.
Can you go on? Can you go on to Herschel Walker, please? We're out of time.
I can't believe you cut him off, but you let them go on and on. This is.
I know. It's a double standard. That's okay. It's cool. I think I made my point clearly on this show to some of for our other panelists because it was getting kind of bloody. But anyway, yeah, Herschel Walker is not. Georgia can do better than that. I mean, it's not even about, having someone in the Senate that can't debate, can't speak, does not have any grasp of the issues. Georgia can do better than that. And again, it's not, I mean, I'm not trying to make it personal about Walker, but if that's the best that this country can do for a senator, then we need to take a hard look in the mirror and say, what the hell is going on here? Again, hypocrisy at its best. If he's going to come out here and say I'm anti-abortion, but it was good enough when I decided to do it, I do think that he needs to be held accountable there. It's one thing to say, hey, I made a bad decision, but I'm going to make government stay out the way. I think that's a personal decision. It's a private matter. But no, he wants to insert himself, use the same talking points, not necessarily differentiate himself from the party line or whatever. And so that shows me that he's not a really good leader.
All right. Thank you. Nas, are you back?
Yeah, I mean, it's like Aguna talked about weeks ago, where he won't have the benefit of Brian Kemp voters kind of showing up for him down ballot. So this is just him versus Warnock, and he's going to lose badly. The situation with her, that's not going to mean much because his voters, they're going to vote for him regardless. That doesn't matter. The only problem is that's just a small, limited voting base, and he can't really expand beyond that. And for anybody who doesn't know, just go pull up Herschel talking about werewolves and vampires. And you get an idea about, and I'm not even going to call him a name or any pejorative, because look, this dude had a lot of carries in the NFL. And CTE and concussions are rampant throughout the NFL. Especially
it's real. It's real.
So ain't no telling what's happened to this dude. And at this point, I'm not, I don't worry about Herschel. I kind of pity him.
All right, now what about Trump's taxes? What about Trump running for president and getting more Secret Service? And what about the fact that the majority of people say it's a bad idea on all sides for Trump to run for president again?
Well, if the Mercers and the other, huge check writers within the Republican Party don't choose him, if they choose DeSantis, it doesn't matter what he wants to do.
Right.
Because he can't grift his way to that amount of money that is going to take to win the 2024 election.
But wouldn't it be, but wait a minute, wouldn't he have already made his deal with the Mercers and the families like that?
I mean, the jury was out after the midterms. And as you saw in the midterms, they don't need him. In fact, they did worse with him. He impacted, this should have been.
But didn't he already make the deal? Why would you go announce and not have made the deal beforehand?
Because he's arrogant. He's a narcissist.
A lot of them are backing DeSantis right now. So in order to make sure he can push DeSantis to 2028, he kind of has to bully his way through it and give them no other choice but him. So that's why he started with the Ron Sanctimonious and all the other stuff, because if it's like a choice between the two, they're going to pick the younger guy who doesn't have the disfavorables that Trump does. The Trump base is what it is, but it doesn't expand. And that's not enough votes to win a national election. We just found that out. Again, Reagan won 58% of the white vote, won in a landslide. Now, here we are all these years later, 58% of the white vote gets you a loss in a national election. This country is much more diverse now, and that Trump coalition, the diehards are there. The people who really love him are there. But the independents and the centrist Republicans who walked away from him and see him as a disgrace, they're not joining up with that side. So, yeah, it's going to be tough. And don't forget about Liz Cheney and her father and that Rolex he has and the checks they are going to be able to get in opposition to him, because that fight ain't over either. If you think that those people are going to allow him to do what he did to their daughter and get away with it with no pushback, like I told y'all this 2 years ago, Liz Cheney is somebody to think about. That ain't over.
Okay, thank you. Cousin Todd.
Can you repeat the question? I don't remember what you said. As far as Donald Trump's taxes,
Okay, thank you. Time's up.
He should have shown them a long time ago. And this is what Stephen said years ago before he got radicalized, that he should have shown his taxes. But I don't think anything criminal is going to come to Donald Trump, because they don't put ex-presidents in jail. But they will prevent him from ever running again, which is all you can hope for. And as for Warnock and his race, Warnock's going to win. And this boy having all these abortions and paying for them. It's typical hypocrite Republican way of thinking. It's okay for them to do it, just not you. Just like Clarence Thomas. He used affirmative action to get to where he is, but it's obsolete now. We don't need it no more now that he used it. Typical Republican, just like I always say, they're against gay marriage and everything else, gays in the military, unless their son or daughter is gay. Just like Cheney, who we're talking about. Now he's at every gay wedding in town.
Okay, thank you. To our first responders in our communities, you make our lives livable. Thank you, thank you, thank you to our women and men of the U.S. military for all that you do in sacrificing your lives so that we are free to say whatever we choose on this show. We are forever indebted. On behalf of Aguna, the Nigerian moderate Republican, Keith, the constitutional conservative.
What the hell is that? Cocoa butter.
Right. Stephen, the independent thinker.
I love everybody.
Yes, him and thinking are independent of each other.
Ron.
And Nas. Thank you, Nas. We can't see you. No one's ever seen Nas. I think he's a mystery person. Does Nas even exist? I don't know.
We're going to get him together with Steven down in the basement, and the FBI is going to.
Nas does not exist. I don't think he exists. Is he? Are you real, Nas?
Listen to this Republican.
He's an algorithm. Thank you, Nas. And to my cousin Todd.
He's a Marxist algorithm. Get him,
Todd,
Keith.
who doesn't know. Todd, who doesn't know the difference between a football, a baseball, a hockey puck, or a basketball.
Like a younger version of a Black Santa over here. Look at him. Get ready.
Younger.
Hey, let's get it.
I'm Stacy. Let's keep this conversation going. Not on Twitter, on Instagram. Check us out on Instagram. We have a new Instagram page. Just go to Sporlitiks, SPORLITIKS at Instagram. Check us out on Stephanie Stallworth's The Flow Television Network. Check us out on YouTube. Like and subscribe to our channel, Twitch, Twitter, TikTok, and have a very happy Thanksgiving. We will not have a live show next week, but you can catch our former shows on our YouTube channel. Thank you and have a good
See you a week after next.
Happy Turkey Day.
Merry Christmas.
No, it's just Thanksgiving. We aren't already at Christmas. Good night.
Well, I figured some radicals are listening and they get all confused. Right, Keith?
Keith, you're on mute. You need to get some sleep, Keith.
Stacy, I got two words for you. I got two quotes for you, though. When this is over.
No, we're going to be gone when this is over. So you better